high for Sarah Swanson.
It's going to be white.
There you go.
It's light work, period.
Roll Tide and welcome to TideTV This Week. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by my co-host Kara Goldstein. And Kara, it's good for me at least to be back in Tuscaloosa.
Yes, it is. How was Nashville?
It was a great time as I was with the Alabama women's basketball team in the Music City. Crimson Tide entered the SEC tournament as the number 11 seed in open play against the number 14 seed Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, going into that SEC tournament matchup, Alabama had won 6 in a row over Auburn, including both matchups this season.
As the final seconds of the first period ticked away, Allie Craig Cruz gave Alabama a 7-point lead to end the first period at 22-15 on this three-pointer. Crimson Tide extended the lead to 9 on 2 occasions in the second, as Alabama held a 35-31 lead at the half.
A Brittany Davis tray extended the Tide's lead to 7 to start the second half, but Auburn retook the lead on a 12-2 run to lead 53-50 at the end of the third. From then on, Alabama took control of the game as the Tide outscored the Tigers 25-15 over the final 8 minutes, leading Alabama to defeat Auburn for the third time this season, 75-68.
4 scored in double figures for the Crimson Tide. Megan Abrams had a game-high 25 points. Brittany Davis and Jemiah Mingo-Young each had a double-double. Davis finished with 15 points and 11 rebounds.
Jemiah Mingo-Young finished with an impressive 14 points as well as 15 rebounds and 4 steals. And Allie Craig Cruz scored 14 on 4 of 6 from beyond the arc. That win advanced the Crimson Tide to the second round for a matchup against the 6th-seeded Georgia Bulldogs. The Crimson Tide jumped on the 24th-ranked Bulldogs really early with the score tied at 8. Alabama outscored the Bulldogs 10-2 to end the first period for the 18-10 lead. The Tide extended the second period with their biggest lead of the game, 37-22 at the half.
It was total domination by the Crimson Tide after that. Alabama led by as many as 20 in the third as the Tide upset the 24th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs 74-62 to move on to the quarterfinals. Brittany Davis and Megan Abrams scored 50 of the Tide's 74 points. Davis finished with 26 points, while Abrams had 24. Allie Craig Cruz was the Tide's other double-digit scorer as Allie Craig collected 10 points.
Next up for the Tide was a rematch with the Tennessee Lady Volunteers. Alabama defeated Tennessee 74-64 back on February 17th.
Tennessee would jump out to a 15-5 lead after the first quarter. Tennessee led by as many as 20 in the second half. Alabama got to within 12 in the second half, but that would be as close as the Tide would get, as Tennessee advanced with the win, 74-59.
The Lady Vols were the better team in Nashville this time around, but Alabama had 2 score in double figures. Megan Abrams finished with 19, and Allie Craig Cruz added 12.
I just want the focus to be on the fact that our kids have won 5 out of the last 7. They have fought, they have battled, they've done everything we've asked them to do. I mean, we've got 2 top 25 wins. We won 17 games and had 2 games canceled to COVID. We had 3 starters missing in January. Meg's battled through injuries. We've got 8 conference wins, and we still got basketball to be played. So just want to turn the focus to how proud I am of our kids.
Coach Curry and the Crimson Tide now wait to see if they will continue their postseason play in either the NCAA tournament. Their selection show will be coming up on Sunday, March 13th, while the women's and IT bracket will be announced the following Monday.
Head coach Nate Oates and the 24th-ranked Alabama men's basketball team wrapped up their regular season this past Saturday with a matchup against the LSU Tigers in Baton Rouge. Alabama defeated then number 13 LSU in Tuscaloosa 70-67 back on January 19th.
This time down in Red Stick, the Tigers jumped out to the early lead. LSU led by as many as 8 in the first half, but with the Tigers up by 3, 36-33 with less than a minute to go, the Tide closed the first half strong. Javon Quinterly nailed a 3 to tie the score at 36, and Noah Gurley had a fast break dunk to end the half to give Alabama the 2-point advantage at the half, 38-36.
In the second half, a Darius Miles dunk gave the Tide their biggest lead of the game, a 5-point advantage at 62-57. LSU tied it up at 62 and took a 4-point lead, 68-64 with 3 minutes left, but the Tide fought back and Keon Ellis sank 2 free throws with 12 seconds left to tie the game and send it into overtime.
In OT, down by 2, this Javon Quinterly three-pointer would give Alabama the 75-74 lead. And then, after a steal by Darius Miles plus a finish at the other end by Keon Ellis, it would be the Crimson Tide going in front by 3 with a minute 31 still to go in overtime. However, Tide couldn't score again. A couple of calls or no calls didn't go the Tide's way in the final seconds of the game, and LSU held on to defeat Alabama by 3 in overtime. Final score 80-77.
It's a tough loss. I thought our guys played a lot harder than they had Wednesday night. The effort was much better. Our turnovers are a major issue right now. We last 3 games, 4 games, 94 points off turnovers, almost 25 points a game off turnovers. So, if you look at the way the game went, if we take care of the ball, probably win the game in regulation.
Alabama out-rebounded LSU 42-33 and made 20 of 22 free throws. But as Coach Oates said, LSU scored 23 points off 21 Alabama turnovers, with 14 of those points coming in the second half. That was too much for the Crimson Tide to overcome.
Keon Ellis led the Crimson Tide with 19 points and 9 rebounds. Javon Quinterly added 16, while J.D. Davison scored 12.
Alabama's competing in the SEC tournament this week. The defending SEC regular season and tournament champions entered this year's tournament as the number 6 seed.
Yeah, we'll have a full recap of the Tide's performance in the SEC tournament next week, and Coach Oates and the Crimson Tide will find out who they will face in the NCAA tournament on Selection Sunday at 5 p.m. Central on CBS.
The Tide has some of the best wins in college basketball this season, with 2 wins over potential number 1 seeds in Baylor and Gonzaga. It's going to be interesting to see what seed the Crimson Tide will receive.
Roger, I love this time of year. March Madness, it's going to be such a fun tournament, and I cannot wait to see who the Tide get to play. They have the potential to go a really long way.
Certainly will be exciting. And it was also exciting out of the Joe this past weekend as the Crimson Tide baseball team got back on track with a 3-game sweep.
And the second-ranked Alabama softball team hosted Texas and Miami of Ohio for the T-Mobile Crimson Classic. We'll have those highlights and more when we return.
TideTV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
William Hammer will string away to center. Oh, baby, did he do it? Yes, he did.
And now Drew Williamson, look out downtown.
Throw there is not in time, and Alabama is a winner. Both teams had a chance to celebrate today, but it's Bama's that counts.
Welcome back to TideTV This Week. The Alabama baseball and softball teams are on the field here at home this past weekend.
The Alabama baseball team hosted Murray State for a 3-game series, while the second-ranked Crimson Tide softball team hosted the T-Mobile Crimson Classic. Let's start with baseball out at the Joe.
Alabama won all 3 games with Murray State, but that sweep didn't come without some dramatics.
Alabama had little trouble in Game 1. The Tide out-hit the Racers 11-4 in Game 1. Owen Diodati drove in a pair of runs, and Tommy Siddell blasted a home run to left field as Alabama won Game 1 5-1. Garrett McMillan pitched 6 scoreless innings for the win, and Dylan Ray picked up the save, striking out 7 of the 10 batters he faced.
The Crimson Tide totaled 11 hits for the second day in a row in Game 2. The Tide pitchers held the Racers to just 1 run again on only 3 hits. Antoine Jean started the game through 4 1/3 innings, giving up just a single run. Hunter Furtado came on in relief to pick up the win as Alabama took Game 2 6-1.
The dramatics came in Game 3 as well, as Alabama was going for the series sweep with the score tied at 3 in the bottom of the 6th, 1 on and 1 out and 2 strikes. Eric Fago crushed the pitch over the left field wall for the go-ahead 2-run homer. That put the Tide up 5-3. Murray State would add a run in the top of the 4th, but that would be it. Brock Guffey got the win, and Hunter Hoops picked up the save as Alabama swept Murray State with a 5-4 win in Game 3.
Really glad to get a sweep today against a good Murray team. They're going to do really well in their league. Really competed really well this weekend, and today we made a lot of mistakes, and it's good to have some adversity. It's good that we got to play through some of that stuff, and we're just really glad we did enough to get a win and to get a sweep. It's hard to beat anybody 3 times. It's hard to win 4 in a row.
Roger, Alabama's win streak came to an end on Wednesday evening as the Tide dropped a tough one to North Alabama 9-5.
And the second-ranked Alabama softball team was here at home this past weekend as well, as the Crimson Tide hosted Texas and Miami of Ohio for the T-Mobile Crimson Classic at Rhodes Stadium.
Alabama started the Crimson Classic off on Friday with a matchup against a future SEC opponent, the Texas Longhorns. The Crimson Tide struck first, jumping out to a 3-0 lead. Alabama added one more, but the Longhorns added a couple of two-run homers to tie the score at 4. But here comes freshman Megan Bloodworth. She delivered the game-winning hit in the bottom of the 6th. With one out, Bloodworth homered down the left field line. That solo shot was the game winner as Alabama took game 1 5-4.
Alabama started day 2 with another matchup with the Longhorns. Texas jumped out to a 1-0 lead with a run in the second inning. With 1 on and 2 out in the top of the third, the Longhorns tried to send one to the gap to score another, but look at this amazing diving catch by Alabama's Jenna Johnson. This incredible play ended the inning, and the Longhorns wouldn't score another run on the day. Jayla Torrance added 3 3/4 innings, allowing just one, while Montana Fouts came on in relief to pick up her 8th win of the year as Alabama won both games against Texas with a 3-1 victory in Game 2.
Alabama then closed out the tournament with games on Saturday and Sunday against Miami of Ohio. With the game tied at 2 in the bottom of the 5th with 2 out, Bailey Dowling sent the pitch over the wall in left center for the 2-run shot. That would be the game winner as Alabama won their first matchup with Miami of Ohio 4-2. Montana Fouts came on in relief once again to pick up her 9th win of the year.
In Alabama's final game of the Crimson Classic on Sunday, the Tide run-ruled the Redhawks 10-2 in 5 innings. 6 Crimson Tide hitters had 2 hits in the game. Jenna Johnson drove in 4 runs, and once again, it was Montana Fouts with the win. She picked up her 10th victory of the year as she struck out 6 of the 10 batters she faced.
Patrick Murphy's squad just keeps on rolling. The Crimson Tide are 20-0, Roger. Montana Fouts is tied for 4th in the country with 10 wins, as she is 10-0 with 92 strikeouts and a 77 ERA.
Gotta love that. The Crimson Tide will be heading to Baton Rouge this weekend for a 3-game series against the 21st-ranked LSU Tigers.
The Alabama gymnastics team had a busy weekend as the Tide hosted Arkansas for senior night and faced 3 other teams in the Elevate the Stage meet in Huntsville.
We'll have those highlights and an update on A-Day and homecoming for the Alabama football team when we return.
Tide TV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
They're headed to the Women's College World Series.
And the Alabama Crimson Tide are your SEC champions for the 6th time with a record-breaking run at the Rhodes House. And a perfect present for Montana Fouts and Alabama at the Women's College World Series.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. I'm Kira Goldstein, joined by my co-host, Roger Hoover. And Roger, the 7th-ranked Alabama gymnastics team closed out the regular season with a couple of matches this past weekend.
The Crimson Tide first hosted Arkansas for senior night on Friday, and Alabama squared off against 3 SEC opponents for the Elevate the Stage quad meet in Huntsville.
Coach Duckworth and the Crimson Tide celebrated the 6 seniors on senior night. Sanaya Mitchell, Griffin James, Kaylee Quinn, Emily Gaskins, Shallon Olsen, and Lexi Graber were all honored during the last home meet of their careers. Once the action began, the Tide dominated. Luisa Blanco earned top honors in the all-around with a 39.625. Blanco also took home the uneven bars title, where she tied her career best of 9.975.
Lexi Graber captured the event title on floor exercise with a career best tying 9.975 and balance team with another career best tying mark of 9.950. Jordan Paradise won the vault with a career best of 9.950. Those career best marks gave the Tide the win and the second best team total in school history, a 198.075.
Night was on fire. I literally had a smile on my face and I couldn't stop smiling. And it doesn't really have to do with the scores. It had to do with watching them put every single thing they had into every single moment tonight. And throughout the week, they were all talking about how they were going to be crying and how emotional it was. And I'm thinking, I've been doing this a while, and that can go one way or another. When they get in there, they can either put tons and tons of pressure on themselves and implode, or they can really dig deep, lean in, and get the job done. And they did it. And we said tonight we wanted to start strong, we wanted to stay strong, and we wanted to finish strong. And they accomplished all of that.
On Sunday, the Tide wrapped up the weekend with the Elevate the Stage meet in Huntsville. Alabama scored their second consecutive 198 score. Crimson Tide defeated Auburn, Arkansas, and Georgia to remain undefeated in Elevate the Stage meets.
Ella Burgess led the Tide on beam with a 9.9, and Maddie Walagora and Cameron Machado were second on the uneven bars with 9.95s. Luisa Blanco won the vault with a 9.95, while Lexi Graber and Lily Hudson tied for top honors on the floor exercise with matching 9.95s. Hudson also placed second in the all-around with a 39.500. The two scores of 198 on the weekend marks the first time in program history that Alabama has scored a pair of 198s during the regular season.
What a performance by the Gym Tide. What a weekend as well for Coach Duckworth's squad. They're definitely peaking at the right time of the year as the Tide prepares for the SEC Championships next week in Birmingham.
Yes, Roger, you're absolutely correct. And we have some football news for you. The Crimson Tide started spring practice this Friday, and the team will have 15 practices, with the final practice being A-Day on April 16th inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Kickoff is scheduled for 2 o'clock on SEC Network Plus.
Alabama's homecoming date was also announced this week. The Crimson Tide will take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs for homecoming on October 22nd.
And the Crimson Tide will kick off the season on September 3rd inside Bryant-Denny against Utah State.
When we return, we'll tell you about another spring sport that picked up a couple of top 30 wins this past weekend and now has moved up into the top 20. We'll have that and more when TideTV This Week returns.
Look out downtown.
Throw there is not in time, and Alabama is a winner. Both teams had a chance to celebrate today, but it's Bama's that counts.
Back to Tide TV This Week, and what a start to the season it has been for the Alabama women's tennis team.
Alabama opened SEC play here in Tuscaloosa this week as the Tide hosted the 28th ranked Kentucky Wildcats and 22nd ranked Vanderbilt.
The Tide took on the Kentucky Wildcats on Friday. After winning the doubles point, Alabama won 3 straight singles matches to clinch the match 4-0 over the 28th ranked Wildcats.
Jenny Mine's squad then followed that up with another big win at home on Sunday as the Tide upset 22nd ranked Vanderbilt 5-2. That win was the first over the Commodores since 2013, and it snapped Vandy's 9-match winning streak. With those wins, the Crimson Tide moves to 12-2 on the season and now 2-0 in conference play.
Those 2 wins over top 30 teams also helped Alabama move up in the polls this week. Alabama was ranked 41st last week, but this week the Tide rose all the way up to number 19. This week the Tide takes on Auburn on Saturday at noon here in Tuscaloosa.
The Alabama men's tennis team dropped a 7-0 decision to number 9 Kentucky this past Friday in Lexington. This weekend, George Husak's squad will take on Ole Miss on Friday and Auburn on Sunday.
And the Alabama rowing team hosted Eastern Michigan for their first home race of the spring. The Tide swept all 3 races against the Eagles and then followed that up with a Senior Day ceremony.
Our Sierra Lynn was there at the Tide's Senior Day Regatta and has a full recap of all of Saturday's exciting events. Sierra?
Rowing hosted Senior Day last Saturday at Manderson Landing. Bama recognized their 13 seniors and graduate students while sweeping all 3 2,000-meter races against Eastern Michigan. Coach Poutre and senior captains Gianna Rucky and Claudia Mecki reflected on the regatta and their senior crew.
We just raced Eastern Michigan last Saturday. It was a fantastic race among all the boats.
As a senior, it's our last home regatta on a Saturday, so I think it was really cool to be able to be a part of it and to really show what we could do on the water.
Claudia Mecchia.
13 seniors who have been very outstanding, I guess, in the way that they choose to stand up and take charge.
They're doing a really nice job of trying to lead in all ways, you know, being leaders by example, being leaders vocally, and you know, I think they got the team heading in a good direction.
From today, we've got a week or 8 days coming up now, so we want to make sure that every training that we do from here on out is near perfect, or like, you know, putting in all the effort that we can to ensure that we're going to get that win against Navy on Tuesday.
A special boat dedication took place prior to the regatta to honor Marie Robbins and Finus Gaston for their contributions in establishing and growing the Alabama rowing program. Next Tuesday, the Crimson Tide will scrimmage against the Naval Academy at home. Stay with us, we'll have more Tide TV this week coming up next.
They're headed to the Women's College World Series.
And the Alabama Crimson Tide are your SEC champions for the 6th time with a record-breaking run at the Rhodes House. And a perfect present for Montana Fouts and Alabama at the Women's College World Series.
Bailey Dowling, well struck, out to center. That's out of here. Bailey Dowling gives Alabama the lead. Out to left, Johnson on the run, makes the catch. Bloodworth to left, high in the sky. It's fair, and Alabama takes a 5-4 lead. Socks it high and deep to left field here. Well back and gone. Eric Fago has put Alabama in front on the strength of his first Crimson Tide home run.
Winding up for the fill-in dismount, so full twist and double back. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, she is the 2001 NCAA floor champion.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. Those are our ATI Plays of the Week. Now let's take a look at our Players of the Week, brought to you by Legacy of Hope. This week we go with a couple of stars from the SEC tournament for the women's basketball team.
Brittany Davis put up a double-double in the first round of the SEC tournament against Auburn as she finished with 15 points and 11 rebounds. She also scored 26 points in the win against Georgia.
Megan Abrams was a major contributor to the Tide success in Nashville in the SEC tournament. Abrams had a game-high 25 points against Auburn, as well as 24 points in the win over Georgia and 19 against Tennessee. And those were our Legacy of Hope Players of the Week. Another really busy week, Roger.
Absolutely. Next week will be as well, so make sure you tune in next week as we bring you more on the Crimson Tide and the all-access content of Alabama that you can't get anywhere else. See you next week, everyone. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield,